Q&A Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the National Podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @Q&A Review, that is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@qnreview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The National News on Friday the 28th of March. Driver who killed a family on the M6 crashed deliberately. An article written by Lucy Jackson. A man who drove the wrong way on the M6, killing himself and a family of 4 Scots, intended to take his own life, an inquest heard. Richard John Woods, who was 40, deliberately drove head-on into a car carrying 4 people, including 2 children, from Glasgow. Yesterday, an inquest heard that Mr. Woods, a former RAF fighter pilot, was almost 4 times the legal drink-drive limit when his southbound blue Skoda Fabia ploughed into a Toyota Yaris on the M6 northbound carriageway in Cumbria just after 4 p.m. on October the 15th last year. A third full bottle of gin was found in Mr. Wood's crashed Skoda, while a fireball engulfed the Glasgow-bound Toyota, with 4 of its 5 occupants pronounced dead at the scene. Toyota driver Jaroslav Rosser, aged 42, died along with 2 of his children, Philip, who was 15, and Dominic, who was 7. Mr. Rosser's partner, Jade McEnroe, aged 33, also lost her life. Miraculously, her son Aaron, also 7, survived. Cockermouth Coroner's Court heard how Hexham-born Mr. Woods had become a flight lieutenant and then a squadron leader during a distinguished RAF career as a fast jet pilot. He toured Afghanistan twice, completed 3 tours of Iraq, and left the RAF in 2019, later working for BAE Systems in Norfolk as a lead contractor instructor pilot. The inquest heard that he had a history of anxiety and detrimental alcohol use, for which he latterly received professional help. He told a counsellor of his previous fighter jet work, "I dropped bombs. It was just a job." The counsellor formed the view he wanted to improve his life and get back on track. On October the 14th, Mr. Woods of Cambridgeshire travelled to Ribby Hall village near Preston for a conference, staying overnight in a hotel. At the conference he fell asleep during morning lectures. Others were concerned that he might be under the influence of alcohol. Mr. Woods failed to show up for the afternoon session and headed north on the M6. At around 3:30 p.m, eyewitnesses initially saw his Skoda travelling northbound. According to one witness, it was drifting between all 3 lanes, travelling erratically, unsafely and dangerously. "We were terrified as to what was going to happen," she later told police. "He looked like he was either drunk or on drugs, like he was zoned out, in his own bubble." Mr. Woods pulled onto the hard shoulder before making a sudden U-turn across the northbound carriageway and into lane 3, heading south in a straight line for more than a mile. There was one near miss with a vehicle. A witness recalled a blue blur and reflected, "How I managed to avoid this vehicle was unbelievable." Mr. Woods travelled on, neither braking nor taking any evasive action as he collided with the Yaris head-on. As the Yaris flipped onto its side and was engulfed in flames, bystanders rushed to try and help, along with the emergency services. The Skoda's speedometer was frozen on 65 miles an hour and could have been travelling at 70 or possibly more at the point of impact, police found. Mr. Woods died from multiple injuries. Analysis of his mobile phone revealed 26 searches covering suicide and suicide of military personnel overseas. Detective Sergeant Deb Story of Cumbria Police's Serious Collision Investigation Unit concluded, after considering all the evidence, that Mr. Woods wanted to end his life while intoxicated, and in doing so killed and injured others. "I would say that it was a deliberate act. Ms Storey told the hearing, adding, "Had Mr Wood survived, I would have presented the case seeking a charge of manslaughter." Assistant Cumbria Coroner Margaret Taylor recorded a conclusion of suicide and called the incident a catastrophe, adding, "The only thing I can do at this stage is to express my condolences to the family for the tragedy that has ensued, but also to remember those who were also involved as collateral to this tragic event." In a statement to the inquest, Mr Woods' father, Keith, said, "Richard was a decent, honourable man, modest and kind towards others. Just a troubled soul who lost his way." An article written by Lucy Jackson. The National News on Friday the 28th of March. Job cuts at a Scottish site as Sky to axe 2,000 jobs and close call centres. An article written by Alistair Ferguson. Sky has announced plans to cut 2,000 jobs at its customer service centres as it plans to close 3 call centres. The contact centres that will close are based in Stockport, Sheffield and Leeds, with its operations at Dunfermline and Newcastle also being scaled back. Sky said that its proposals would affect 7% of its overall workforce and were currently subject to consultation. The company, which is owned by US-based media giants Comcast, explained that it has decided to close the call centres due to more people using its digital services to contact its support team. Sky said that it expects the number of customer service calls to drop from 25 million a year currently to around 17 million by 2029, a decrease of around a third. The media firm also announced on Thursday that it's making a multi-million-pound investment in its Livingston site to establish a centre of excellence. The broadcaster said in a statement on Sky News, "We're transforming our business to deliver quicker, simpler and more digital customer service. Our customers increasingly want choice, to speak to us on the phone when they need us most, and the ease of managing everyday tasks digitally. We're investing in a new centre of excellence for customer service, alongside cutting-edge digital technology to make our service seamless, reliable and available 24/7. This is about building a future-ready Sky that continues to put our customers and their needs first." The decision on Thursday comes after Sky announced plans last year to axe 1,000 jobs in 2024, with a significant number of engineers, as fewer people want satellite dishes installed at their homes. At the time, Sky employed about 26,000 people in the UK. A spokesperson for Sky said at the time, "The launch of Sky Glass and Sky Stream represents a shift in our business to deliver television over an internet connection rather than via satellite. Increasingly, customers are choosing Sky Glass and Sky Stream, which don't require specialist installation, and that has led us to change the number of roles we need to deliver our services." An article written by Alistair Ferguson. The National Politics on Friday the 28th of March. Labour MPs line up to rebel against the benefit cuts. An article written by Xander Elliots. A growing number of Labour MPs are making clear their intentions to rebel against the UK government's decision to cut disability benefits by billions of pounds. On Wednesday, Chancellor Rachel Reeves used her spring statement to outline extended cuts to the Personal Independence Payment, or PIP, and the health element of universal credit, which estimates say will save the UK government £4.8 billion per year by 2030. However, an impact assessment from Labour's Department for Work and Pensions said that the cuts would push 250,000 people, including 50,000 children, into poverty. It also estimated that the average PIP claimant would be £4,500 worse off per year. PIP is paid to people with long-term conditions or disabilities to help them manage the additional costs involved and is not tied to whether someone is in work. Labour's plans to cut it back, which they claim will help push people into employment, have proven controversial among backbench MPs, with many saying that they plan to rebel when the changes come to a Commons vote. MPs Neil Duncan-Jordan, Lee Barron, Brian Leishman, John Trickett, Kim Johnston, Ian Byrne, Richard Bergen, Rachel Maskell, Nadia Whittome, Graham Morris, Conor Naismith, Chris Webb and Bel Ribeiro Addy are amongst those who have said that they will oppose the Labour government's cuts. And Diane Abbott, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Emma Lewell, Imran Hussain, Clive Lewis and Steve Witherden are amongst the Labour MPs to have openly criticised them, putting themselves in opposition to the UK government without explicitly confirming their intention to rebel in a vote. John McDonnell, the former Labour Shadow Chancellor, who is currently suspended by the party and sitting as an independent MP, has also been vocal in his opposition. Speaking to Sky News, Clive Lewis suggested that the number of rebels would be higher if Keir Starmer had not used Labour selection processes before the general election to install loyalists in safe seats. In one example, known left-winger Lloyd Russell Moyle was not allowed to stand for Labour in Brighton Kemp Town, which he had represented since 2017, due to a complaint that was dismissed in January this year without action. Mr Russell Moyle was replaced for the general election by Chris Ward, a close Starmer ally and staffer who was elected in the seat in his place. People looked the other way when we were making our selections, Mr Lewis told Sky News. A lot of my colleagues have been chosen for loyalty. The changes will need to be brought to a Commons vote, which is likely to happen in May, and the UK government could be facing its largest rebellion yet. The Guardian newspaper reported that up to 36 Labour MPs could oppose the cuts, but that they are expected to pass. An article written by Xander Elliots. The National Politics on Friday the 28th of March. Labour mulls a tech tax break as President Trump brings in new car tariffs. An article written by Hamish Morrison. A minister has refused to rule out giving tech giants a tax break in a bid to exempt Britain from US tariffs after Donald Trump announced new 25% rates on imported cars. Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds indicated that the government was willing to discuss reducing the burden of the digital services tax on US firms like Amazon and Meta, the parent company of Facebook, at a Chatham House conference on Thursday. He said, "We've always been of the view as a country that this has to be something ideally agreed on an international basis, but it's not that the digital services tax has been put in place as something that can never change, or we can never have a conversation about it." Insisting that the government was committed to making sure that tech companies pay a fair amount of tax in the UK, Mr Reynolds added that the United States had expressed concerns about the specific structure of that, but said it was not a major part of the conversation on tariffs. Introduced as a temporary measure in 2020, the tax imposes a 2% levy on tech firms, including US giants owned by supporters of Donald Trump, and brings in about £800 million a year. Elsewhere, Chancellor Rachel Reeves said that the UK was not planning at the moment to introduce retaliatory tariffs on the United States in response to President Trump's new policy on imported cars, which has sent shockwaves through the markets. Shares in UK carmaker Aston Martin dropped by 6% when stock markets opened on Thursday morning. Ms Reeves told Sky News, "We're not at the moment at a position where we want to do anything to escalate these trade wars." The new tariffs are due to come into force on the 2nd of April, along with other new levies on imported goods. Official forecasts from the Office for Budget Responsibility estimated that tariffs could knock off as much as 1% of gross domestic product from the UK's flatlining economy if the government fails to secure exemptions. America could also introduce a general 20% levy on all UK-made goods in response to the rate of VAT. The Liberal Democrats are calling on the government to back the digital services tax, saying it would be unforgivable if the government goes ahead with cutting taxes for US tech barons to appease Elon Musk and President Trump. The party is also calling for the UK government to introduce retaliatory tariffs on America, and specifically Tesla, which is owned by Mr Musk, who holds a powerful role in President Trump's White House. The worst-case scenario would come about if President Trump imposed 20% tariffs on British goods and the UK reciprocated in kind, the Office for Budget Responsibility warned on Thursday. Richard Hughes, the Spending Watchdog's chairman, said, "This represents the crystallisation of one of the risks that we highlighted around our central forecast, which was one of escalating global trade tensions." Around 4 in 5 cars made in the UK are exported to America, a trade which represents around 0.2% of British gross domestic product, according to Mr Hughes. UK vehicle exports to the United States are mainly premium and luxury cars. Some 16.9% of UK car exports were to the United States last year, representing a total of more than 101,000 units, worth £7.6 billion. An article written by Hamish Morrison. The National News on Friday the 28th of March. Scottish sailor jailed in the Middle East granted a royal pardon. An article written by Gregor Young. A Royal Navy sailor jailed in Bahrain has been granted a royal pardon by its king. Owen Haggerty from Johnston in Renfrewshire was sentenced to 3 months behind bars last month after reportedly trying to break up a street brawl. The Daily Record reported that his mother, Kirsty Reynolds, wrote to the King of Bahrain, Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, asking for a royal pardon for her son. She said that she burst out crying when she was given the news that the pardon had been granted. Ms Reynolds told the newspaper, "I can't stop shaking. It's unbelievable news. It's just such a massive hurdle that we've overcome in the fight to bring Owen home." Paisley and Renfrewshire South Labour MP Joanna Baxter said that she was very pleased that he's been granted a royal pardon by the King of Bahrain. During the weekly business question session in Westminster on Thursday, Ms Baxter told the Commons that no one from the UK government would speak with her about the case when Mr Haggerty was in prison. She told MPs no one would engage with me to inform me of his welfare or the current status of his case, and that was because apparently I did not have his explicit consent. He was sitting in a jail in Bahrain. I had his mother's consent. She was also a constituent, and still nobody would speak to me. She asked Commons leader Lucy Powell, can the Leader of the House ensure that the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office works with me to arrange his urgent deportation back to this country, and that we avoid further delays in the future to MPs securing access to the information that they need to support their constituents? Ms Powell replied, "I'm pleased that Owen Haggerty has now received that pardon this morning. She raised this matter with me a couple of days ago, which is why I raised it with the Foreign Office, which is why they were in touch with her this morning." She added that the Ministry of Defence and the Foreign Office have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the pardon, and vowed to press them to work with Ms Baxter and Mr Haggerty's family to make sure that he comes back to the UK. An article written by Gregor Young. The National News on Friday the 28th of March. WH Smith to sell all its high street stores amid plans for a complete rebrand. An article written by Emilia Kettle. Retailer WH Smith has agreed to sell its UK high street chain to Modella Capital and will rebrand. A deal valued at £76 million will see the brand's high street stores eventually rebrand as TG Jones. The company's high street operation is made up of about 500 stores, the first of which was opened 230 years ago. Over the past decade, the firm has focused on its travel retail business, which operates from airports, railway stations and hospitals. The high street business now accounts for only about 15% of the annual group trading profit. Sharing details of the sale, WH Smith said that all stores, colleagues, assets and liabilities of the high street business will move under Modella Capital's ownership as part of the transaction. The retailer added that the high street chain will operate for a short transitional period under the WH Smith brand, whilst the business rebrands as TG Jones. Carl Cowling, Group Chief Executive of WH Smith, said, As we continue to deliver on our strategic ambition to become the leading global travel retailer, this is a pivotal moment for WH Smith as we become a business exclusively focused on travel. We have a highly successful travel business operating in fast-growing markets in 32 countries, and we're constantly innovating to deliver strong returns and meet our customers' and partners' needs. Our travel business currently accounts for around 75% of the group's revenue and 85% of its trading profit. With the ongoing strength in our UK travel division and the scale of the growth opportunities in both North America and the rest of the world, we're in our strongest ever position to deliver enhanced growth as we move forward as a pure travel retailer. As our travel business has grown, our UK High Street business has become a much smaller part of the WH Smith Group. High Street is a good business. It's profitable and cash generative with an experienced and high-performing management team. However, given our rapid international growth, now is the right time for a new owner to take the High Street business forward and for the WH Smith leadership team to focus exclusively on our travel business. I wish the High Street team every success. As we look forward as a simplified travel-focused group, I'm excited about the group's future prospects. With a clear strategy, a strong balance sheet and operations in high-growth and attractive markets, we are well positioned to generate substantial growth and value for all stakeholders. An article written by Emilia Kettle.
From the National, Monday the 31st of March 2025, from the news section. Event to mark 40th anniversary of mysterious death of Willie McRae. Article written by James Walker. An event is to be held in the Highlands to mark the anniversary of the mysterious death of Willie McRae. In 1980, McRae, a top lawyer and senior SNP member, made headlines after representing a group opposed to dumping nuclear waste in the Ayrshire Hills at a public inquiry. He won, and the victory proved a major setback in plans for having nuclear waste buried across the UK. But on the evening of Good Friday, April the 5th, 1985, McRae set off from his flat in Glasgow's south side for his holiday cottage close to Dorney in Western Ross. He never arrived. Instead, on April the 6th, his car was found by the side of the road. He was in the front seat with a bullet through his right temple. On Sunday, April the 7th, McRae died without ever regaining consciousness. A post-mortem concluded suicide, but questions have persisted for decades. A gun was not found when the scene was first visited by the police, but was when the scene was searched the following week. Now, a group of yesers is looking to hold an event to draw new attention to McRae's case. 40 years has passed since a man was found dying on a Highland road in mysterious circumstances. Not just any man, but a seeker of justice and a thorn in the side of the establishment. Pete Smith, an event organiser and a member of the Yes Highlands and Islands, told the National. He added, Willie McRae took a massive secret to his grave, and we intend to seek justice for McRae by demanding a public inquiry into the case. There are 6 speakers lined up, including Ron Cully, whose book Firebrand examines the McRae case in detail and is also mentioned on the flyer, which has been created for the event. A piper, and reportedly a film crew, will also be in attendance. The organisers also wish to stress that this is not an independence event, although added that the quest for Scotland's self-governance is of course linked to this killing. The event will be held at the Willie McRae Memorial Cairn on the A87 at the side of Loch Lorne at 12 noon on April 5th. Attendees will then head to the nearby Invergarry Hotel for speeches, with those wishing to attend asked to register via Eventbrite due to limited space. Organisers were also keen to highlight that parking is limited near the cairn. An article was written by James Walker and read by Ian McKenna. From the National, Monday the 31st of March 2025, from the news section, exclusive. Hundreds of Scottish landlords tried to hike rents above cap. Article written by Abby Garton-Crosby. Hundreds of landlords attempted to hike rents above government limits, in some cases trying to double them, an investigation by The National has found. Last year, the Scottish Government introduced protections for tenants that blocked rents from being raised over 12% of the existing monthly cost, but only if the case was referred to Rent Services Scotland, RSS. The measures are due to end on April the 1st, 3 years after the initial rent freeze was introduced. The National can reveal that 866 applications to RSS from April 2024, in 490 cases, 56.5%, landlords tried to push rents above 12%. Research conducted by Tenants Union Living Rent found that on 36 occasions, 4%, landlords tried to raise rents by 50% or above. The union said the figures showed landlords were going to have a field day when the protections are lifted in the coming days. In Falkirk, one landlord tried to raise a tenant's rent from £520 to £1,150, 121%, with rental officers ruling that the monthly amount would be capped at £582.40. In Glasgow, another tenant challenged an attempt to have their rent doubled from £700 to £1,400. The final decision ruled rent would be £784 per month. The Scottish Landlord Association did not respond to our request for comment. Overall, Living Rent found that rent officers reduced the amount tenants would pay to around 9% on average, and previously urged for the measures to be kept in place while the Housing Bill, which contains plans for rent controls, makes its way through Holyrood. Ruth Gilbert, National Campaign Chair for Living Rent, told The National, "These numbers highlight how irresponsible it is for the government to abolish the 12% cap that has protected tenants from sky-high increases. Landlords are about to have a field day as they hit tenants hard with rent increases that push many tenants further into poverty. As the data from last year shows, open market rent means that many will have a rent increase of 20 to 30%. No one can afford this." Scottish Greens co-leader Patrick Harvey, former Minister for Tenants' Rights, said that he wished the figures were a surprise. "It's an indication of the scale of increases which will not be allowed," he said. "Those kinds of increases that people could challenge successfully, people will make those challenges and they'll lose, or they'll know that they don't have much of a chance and they won't make the challenges at all. That's the real concern, that the scale of increases are just going to be beyond anything that people can manage." The National put figures to the Housing Minister Paul McClellan, who said he would not be drawn on hypothetical increases, adding that the Scottish Government will monitor the situation after April the 1st. He said, "Obviously we've got to ask landlords to be sensible about this as well, and part of what we tried to do was about making sure that there was the ability to raise rent, but it was based on a level that was reasonable. There is still that right to review. We've tried in the last month or so to encourage people to do so. That's something we'll continue to monitor as we go forward. I think we've struck the right balance in terms of what we're trying to do, and we are still committed to rent controls coming in." An investigation found another Glasgow landlord attempted to almost double rent on a Southside property from £620 to £1,200, 94%. Meanwhile, in the Marchmont area of Edinburgh, an attempt to hike rent in a 5-bedroom property from £2,000 per month to £3,800, 90%, which is limited to just £2,240. Elsewhere in the south side of Glasgow, tenants were asked to pay £1,400 a month, plus 87%, up from £750. The Housing Bill, which is currently at stage 2 in the Scottish Parliament and likely to see more amendments, contains plans for rent controls. The legislation would allow landlords to increase rents at the rate of the Consumer Price Index, CPI, a measure of inflation, plus 1%, up to a maximum increase of 6%. However, Living Rent pointed out this would only come into effect in 2027, and, in the meantime, tenants are faced with 2 years of completely uncapped rents. Gilbert added, "Landlords increasing rents will decimate our cities, force people out of their homes, and further exacerbate both homelessness and poverty. This government is deserting tenants and, as a result, tenants will see rents skyrocket. An increase in homelessness and even greater pressure on social housing. Harvey said that if the bill goes through as it is with no amendments, and the government's plans for rent control come in, it's better than nothing. But the worry is that most positive benefit that it could have delivered simply will not materialise, he added. If local authorities use the power, it will prevent the most abusive rent hikes in certain circumstances, but it won't stop the long-term trend towards housing becoming ever more unaffordable for people. McClelland admitted the 1% above inflation is where the SNP and Scottish Greens disagreed on rent controls. They didn't want the 1%. The 1% allows that ability for investment, he added. I think that's a balance that's going to strike the right note in terms of allowing investment, but it also gets that rent control. We're the only government in the UK that's going to be doing that. I think we struck the right note and, hopefully, I think we'll get support in the Parliament for that. And that article was written by Abby Garton Crosby and read by Ian McKenna. From the National, Monday the 31st of March, Politics. SNP MP Pete Wishart rapped for telling Tories to shut up in Commons. Report by Abby Garton Crosby. SNP MP Pete Wishart was told off for telling Tory MPs to shut up while they heckled him during a debate on migration. Speaking in the House of Commons chamber, the SNP Deputy Westminster Leader was rapped by Deputy Speaker Nursat Ghani for his comment. The exchange took place during a Home Office questions on Monday. Wishart said limiting path to citizenship is one of the most shocking and egregious things this government has done, and that there are no safe routes to get to the UK. He told MPs, "One of the most shocking and egregious things this government has done is to impose a blanket ban on British citizenship for all individuals who have entered the UK irregularly without any parliamentary scrutiny or public consultation, effectively disenfranchising all asylum seekers and refugees, including those who have made this country their home for years." The Refugee Council estimates that up to 71,000 refugees who have already been granted asylum could now be blocked from securing naturalisation. Home Secretary Vic Cooper knows there are no safe routes to get to the UK, so nearly all asylum seekers have to arrive irregularly. Surely this clearly breaches Article 31 of the 1951 Refugee Convention, which prohibits penalising those seeking protection for the mode of entry. Wishart then told Tory MPs to shut up as they shouted from their benches. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp could be seen pointing and shouting at Wishart while the exchange took place. It's understood that Tory MPs were shouting that migrants were illegals, prompting Wishart to hit back. Over groans, Ghani interjected and said members should be respectful and mindful of their language the whole time. Now we need to hear the Minister respond. Home Office Minister Seema Malhotra said, "Wishart will know that with the changes we have made, we also explained that each citizenship application will continue to be considered on a case-by-case basis, and the Secretary of State may choose to apply discretion to grant citizenship on an exceptional basis where there has been particularly exceptional or mitigating circumstances, such as modern slavery." And that report was written by Abby Garton Crosby and read by Ian McKenna. From the National, Monday the 31st of March 2025. From the news section, UK Government's Prince Andrew cover-up files revealed by Alistair Ferguson. The UK Government has been accused of refusing to release documents about Prince Andrew's past role as a trade envoy, according to reports. Author Andrew Lowney, who's currently writing a biography of the disgraced royal, has reportedly been unable to access certain files on the Duke of York during his time as UK representative in the Middle East. All three Whitehall departments have refused Lowney's Freedom of Information (FOI) requests for specific details about Prince Andrew, the author has claimed. However, he was able to obtain documents that showed what topics should be censored when information requests are received. Lowney claimed he was told he could not see certain files with government departments directing him to a long list of exemptions under FOI, including unexplained references to national security or departments claiming they can neither confirm nor deny they have the information he requested. Among those requests, the Foreign Office told Lowney they cannot provide him with information relating to the Prince's visits to Egypt, the UAE, Kuwait, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, partly on the grounds of cost. The Prince's visit to Saudi Arabia in 2011 was also rejected due to the fact it would cost the department too much to collect the information for the author. Lowney told Declassified, "Over the last 4 years I have made over 100 FOI requests without eliciting any information on Prince Andrew's decade as a taxpayer-funded special trade representative. Every possible exemption has been deployed to avoid releasing papers, which, by law, many of which should now be in the National Archives." Last month, Defence Minister Vernon Coker told peers that a Ministry of Defence review of areas that could have been involved in Prince Andrew's role as trade envoy has not produced records of briefings to the Prince after he left the Navy. Lowney told Declassified he does not believe Coker, and has questioned a response by the Foreign Office that they hold no files on the Prince. Despite Lowney being unable to access information from the three Whitehall departments regarding Prince Andrew's time as a trade envoy, he was able to obtain the MOD's Blue Guide. The document outlines which topics should be blocked from Freedom of Information requests and reveals that Saudi Arabia is singled out for special treatment in a move which could help protect the country from having to reveal information about Britain's largest arms market. Prince Andrew visited Saudi Arabia 6 times when he was the UK Special Representative for International Trade and Investment. Under a heading, Arabian Peninsula and Gulf Sensitivity Issues, the MOD's Blue Guide stated, "Note that in most Gulf countries the rulers, members of their family and many senior officials have been in office for a considerable period of time," according to Declassified. In a passage about international sensitivity, the document's guidance refers to specific concerns relating to the Arabian Peninsula and Gulf countries, particularly Saudi Arabia and COCOM records, which is believed to be the coordinating committee for the multilateral export controls. The guidance adds, "General sensitivity concerns also apply to Arabian Peninsula and Gulf countries." It then refers to examples of potential international sensitivity which are all redacted. The latest version of the guide is dated August last year and was given to Lowney last month. Despite the MOD agreeing to give Lowney its redacted Blue Guide, the Foreign Office and Cabinet Office declined to hand over their equivalent manuals. Lowney has suggested that the Royal Register should be established and that it should contain information about the business interests of the royal family and how they spend taxpayers' money. And that report was written by Alistair Ferguson and read by Ian McKenna. From the National, Monday the 31st of March 2025, from the Culture section. Netflix, Adolescence to be available in all high schools. Article written by Andrew Smart. The hit Netflix show Adolescence is to be made available in all UK secondary schools through Film Plus. The harrowing programme follows the story of a 13-year-old schoolboy named Jamie who is accused of murdering a female classmate. Featuring a number of big names like Stephen Graham, the story has proven a hit with viewers thanks to its unique style and thought-provoking message. Anne Mensah, Netflix VP UK Content, said, "Adolescence has captured the national mood, sparking important conversations and helping articulate the pressures young people and parents face in today's society. We're incredibly proud of the impact the show has made and are delighted to be able to offer it to all schools across the UK through Into Film Plus. As part of this, Healthy Relationships charity Tender will create resources for teachers and parents to help them navigate the important topics the show explores." This comes as Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said the show hit home hard. He said, "As a father, watching the show with my teenage son and daughter, I can tell you, it hit home hard. It is an important initiative to encourage as many pupils as possible to watch the show. As I see from my own children, openly talking about changes in how they communicate, the content they're seeing, and exploring the conversations they're having with their peers is vital if we are to properly support them in navigating contemporary challenges and deal with malign influences. This isn't a challenge politicians can simply legislate for. Believe me, if I could pull a lever to solve it, I would. Only by listening and learning from the experiences of young people and charities can we tackle the issues this groundbreaking show raises. And that report was written by Andrew Smart and read by Ian McKenna. From the National, Monday the 31st of March 2025, from the Culture section. Scottish firm to make extreme new crisps range for M&S by Alistair Ferguson. A Scottish firm has landed a major deal to make a new range of Marks & Spencer crisps. Taylor Snacks, based in the village of Arrow in Perth and Kinross, have added 30 new staff members as a result of winning the contract to produce M&S's new Extreme Ridge range. After almost 2 years of discussions and collaborations with the retail giant, the deeply ridged for extreme flavouring crunch crisps entered 900 stores across the UK last week. James Taylor, managing director of Taylor Snacks, told the Courier that the collaboration with M&S is one of the company's greatest achievements and that he is delighted with the launch. We had an initial visit from M&S in the summer of 23, he said. In March last year, we were awarded the business after several talks and work in getting the seasoning right. It's a tighter ridge compared to our Taylor's range and has a different texture. It's thinner cut and crispier, a lighter bite. On the back of the contract, it has created around 30 jobs, everything from production staff to warehouse to our quality control technical team. This feels like this is one of our biggest achievements to successfully launch and range with M&S. The team has worked incredibly hard. Everyone has pulled together, and we are delighted with the quality of product we've achieved. The Extreme Ridge range comes in a variety of 6 flavours, including cheese and onion, sizzling steak and chicken curry. The Taylor family, who have been farmers for 4 generations, originally set up their snack venture with one of Scotland's biggest food brands, Mackie's, in 2009. The family bought out Mackie's shareholding in 2022 and rebranded as Taylor Snacks, and have seen their Arrow operation grow from 50 to 90 staff in the last 3 years. Taylor said there is potential to expand from Arrow. Business already has a further 90 staff working in Sheffield after its acquisition of popcorn firm South Yorkshire Foods in 2022, and have ambitions to become B Corp certified. I think we've demonstrated in Scotland just how successful we've been with a unique style of product. We definitely believe there's room for that across the UK. There's also the potential requirement in the next couple of years for an expansion to the factory in Arrow. That would be a new production facility and frying line. Other ambitions are to make our range healthier over the next 10 years and achieve B Corp status. An article written by Alistair Ferguson and read by Ian McKenna.
From the National, Tuesday the 1st of April 2025, from the Politics section. First Minister visits Scottish school after unprecedented sectarian attacks. Article written by Xander Eliards. The First Minister has visited a Scottish primary school after it was hit by an unprecedented series of sectarian attacks. Scottish Tory MSP Jackson Carlaw, who represents Eastwood at Holyrood, had raised the attacks on St Joseph's Primary School in Busby with John Swinney last week. The Catholic school had been hit by sectarian graffiti and children's play areas were set on fire in 2 separate arson attacks. Speaking at First Minister's questions last Thursday, Carlaw said, "I've been appalled in the last few weeks at an unprecedented series of attacks. Sectarian attacks targeted on St Joseph's Primary School in Busby in my Eastwood constituency. The buildings have been sprayed with offensive sectarian, discriminatory graffiti. The outdoor play area was set on fire and there was a further arson attack on children's area just this last weekend. The school community have been left naturally distressed." The First Minister said it was wrong for the school to have been targeted with completely and utterly unacceptable behaviour, which never had any place in Scottish society, and it certainly doesn't have any place in Scottish society in 2025. Swinney offered to visit the primary alongside Carlaw, saying it would be an indication of my warm appreciation of the strength of the school and what it does for the children of that community. On Monday, the pair attended the school to answer students' questions, where they were also joined by Scottish Labour MP Blair McDougall. Carlaw, the former Scottish Conservative leader, said on social media that it had been great to welcome John Swinney to St Joseph's Primary School. He added, "After such a difficult time for pupils, parents and staff, it's encouraging to see such a unified response." The primary gave a huge St Joseph's thank you to the First Minister for visiting our school today to show his support. It added, "Well done to our community schools for standing united against vandalism and antisocial behaviour in our community." Previously, Police Scotland Chief Inspector Gillian Falls said of the case, "We are investigating a number of recent incidents concerning damage at school premises in the Busby area. I'd like to reassure the public we're doing everything we can to trace those responsible and have increased patrols as a deterrent and for community reassurance. We are also working closely with our partner agencies to explore all lines of investigation. If you have witnessed suspicious activity in the area, I would urge you to contact police on 101, attend your local police station or call 999 in an emergency. I would encourage anyone with any information to contact 101 or alternatively Crime Stoppers." And that article was written by Xander Eliards. From the National, Tuesday the 1st of April 2025, from the news section. Glasgow residents asked for views on a £100 million plan to replace Winford Towers. Article written by Esther Tarnay. Glasgow residents are encouraged to have their say on the £100 million development, which will replace the Winford Towers. Almost 400 new energy-efficient homes are proposed on the North Glasgow site, along with a community centre. Now, tenants and homeowners in the area will have a chance to see the plans, models and artist impressions of the scheme, and share their opinions. Artists and designers will be ready to answer any questions and take on board people's views at 2 events at Maryhill Burgh Halls. Anyone is welcome today from 2 p.m. until 7 p.m. and on Wednesday, May 21st between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. The results of these discussions will impact the upcoming planning applications for the site. Frank McCafferty, Wheatley's Group Director of Repairs and Assets, said, "These are really exciting times for Winford. Residents in Winford have always been at the very heart of the regeneration. These events will be a great opportunity for people to look at the plans in more detail and give us their views. The feedback we receive will be crucial in shaping the planning application we submit later this year." The buildings at 151, 171 and 191 Winford Road were all demolished on Sunday, March 23rd, as hundreds of onlookers gathered in the area. Wheatley Homes Glasgow decided to pull down the flats to make way for the regeneration project, funded jointly by Glasgow City Council. This investment will include the creation of 386 affordable homes, 85% of which are planned for social rent, and will encourage families to relocate to the Maryhill area. Also proposed is a 2-storey, purpose-built community hub with a large hall, cafe space, bookable rooms and free access to computers. The plan further includes green spaces, improved walkways, cycle paths, 500 new bike racks, improved car parking facilities and a new children's play park. And that article was written by Esther Tarnay. From the National, Tuesday the 1st of April 2025, from the news section. Rescuers reveal events leading to Ben Nevis climber's death. Article written by Laura Pollock. Rescuers have revealed a timeline of events that led to a man's death after he fell while climbing on Ben Nevis. The 22-year-old fell in the Moonlight Gully area when he slipped in challenging conditions while climbing with another man on Saturday. At around 3,000 feet up, the pair are believed to have landed on craggy ground after the fatal fall. Members of the Lochaber Mountain Rescue Team, LMRT, were tasked by Police Scotland to help the two climbers at about 5 p.m. The surviving climber, aged 30, has been described by rescuers as a very lucky man, after he managed to call for help, He was then airlifted to hospital to receive treatment. The deceased man and his colleague are both reported to have come from England. LMRT team leader Ian Murray said, "The climber who survived is very lucky. It is very hazardous terrain and he must have struck the rocky ground on his way down. He had serious injuries. He fell a significant distance, as did his companion, more than 200 feet. Sadly, his friend did not survive. We wish to pass our condolences to his family and friends." He added, "We managed to treat the injured man and carry him to a point where the Coast Guard helicopter from Inverness could airlift him. We then returned to the site to recover his companion's body. It was very hazardous conditions with strong winds and rain. The ground where the climbers fell was particularly challenging in the conditions." A Police Scotland spokesperson said on Monday, "At around 5 p.m. on Saturday, March the 29th, police were made aware of concerns for 2 climbers injured on the north face of Ben Nevis. Officers are tended to carry out searches with our partners in the Lochaber Mountain Rescue Team and Inverness Coast Guard Rescue Helicopter, with the operation continuing on Sunday, March 30th. A 30-year-old man was taken to Rigmore Hospital with serious but not life-threatening injuries. The body of a 22-year-old man was recovered and next of kin are aware of the death. A report will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal." And that article was written by Laura Pollock. From The National, Tuesday the 1st of April 2025, from the news section. Scottish Sports Centre to reopen after Gorse wildfire. Article written by Laura Pollock. A sports centre is set to reopen after a wildfire broke out near the facility in Edinburgh. The fire was seen on the hill near Midlothian Snow Sports Centre Hill End on Bigger Road in the capital on Tuesday morning. The Gorse fire forced the team to delay their opening. The fire is now under control and we aim to reopen the centre, including the Alpine Coaster from 2 p.m. Thank you for your understanding with the situation we have experienced. Due to our fire service colleagues tackling a gorse fire close to the coaster, there will be a delay in opening today. We will keep you updated as we aim to try and open later today. The statement added, "Please note this is not an April Fool's joke. Apologies for any inconvenience." And that article was written by Laura Pollock.
This is from The National on Tuesday the 1st of April 2025 from the comments section. Keir Starmer's immigration plan is not convincing the far right. This article is by Shona Craven. When a politician starts a sentence with, "believe me," it's wise to sit up and take notice. Not because they're about to speak the truth, because they know the intended audience is going to need a lot of convincing. Keir Starmer says compassionate and fair-minded people in Britain are angry about immigration. But he also wants to imply their anger, like his, is directed towards the vile people smuggling gangs who bring small boats across the English Channel. Who is he trying to kid? I know some of you will read this with scepticism and assume that nothing can or will be done, he wrote in an op-ed for the Daily Mail, timed to coincide with his organised immigration crime summit as it got underway in London yesterday. I am determined to prove the opposite. The problem for the PM is that to many of those reading, holding a summit, even one attended by representatives of more than 40 countries and multiple social media giants, falls into the category of doing nothing. It's talk, not action, they will say. It's the action of a weak leader, not a strong man. And Starmer's cringeworthy references to rolling up his sleeves will not persuade them otherwise. Such people do not want to hear about international cooperation because that suggests the need to compromise and the obligation to accept and accommodate at least some desperate people fleeing desperate circumstances. What they want to see is the creation of a situation so unbearable for people arriving in the UK illegally that no one in their right mind will attempt a risky crossing. If asked to explain what that situation might look like, and how the safety, security, and indeed humanity of everyone else living here could be assured at the same time, they are unlikely to have answers. except perhaps to grumble about the Rwanda scheme being scrapped. Perhaps they'll parrot the laughable Reform UK election pledge that, if needed, migrants in small boats will be picked up and taken back to France. They'll be quick to point to any examples they can find of crime and disorder by immigrants living on the margins, while also suggesting hordes of outsiders are coming to the UK to quietly enjoy lives of comfort, if not luxury, on benefits. This perceived division between them and us is only being hardened by such Labour policies as restricting winter fuel payments, removing disability benefits, and decreasing job security for all. Never mind that those living in limbo in hotels are receiving just £8.86 per week. Their board and heating bills are paid for and they aren't allowed to work, let alone obliged to do so in spite of disability or chronic pain. The problem with Starmer's narrative is that on the one hand he talks of uncontrolled immigration as a massive driver of global insecurity that leaves public services struggling under the strain. But he also describes it as unfair on the illegal migrants themselves, because they are vulnerable people being ruthlessly exploited by vile gangs. Crossing the channel in a small boat is clearly a very dangerous thing to do, but once a person arrives in the UK, the vulnerability they face is different, and the threat may not be from a foreign other, but from some of the very people the PM hopes to bring on side by rolling up his sleeves and negotiating with the French. The ones who are quick to blame illegal immigrants if they can't get housing or a GP appointment. We saw in the aftermath of the Southport attacks how quickly groups, vile gangs one might call them, can form on these shores and commit acts of violence based on rumour and social media incitement. Telling such people, "I know you're angry," is pointless if they're angry at you, for rational reasons, and in no mood to be given a lecture about having sympathy for the vulnerable when you are actively increasing their vulnerability and that of their family members. The Tories' approach to stopping the small boats was, of course, also incoherent. It was based on making the two contradictory arguments simultaneously: that the threat of being shipped off to Rwanda would prove a sufficient deterrent to those considering a small boat crossing to the UK, despite huge scepticism from the outset about whether the scheme would ever be truly viable, and that shipping people off to Rwanda en masse was a perfectly legal and responsible thing to do, since Rwanda was a safe country that would be well set up to house and process and resettle asylum applicants. In the end, a grand total of 4 asylum seekers went to Rwanda, all voluntarily. The cost per departure was about $175 million per head. It remains to be seen what role return hubs in Balkan countries will play in Labour's plans, and how Starmer will handle accusations that such a scheme is likely to cost plenty of money but lack the deterrent element of the Rwanda scheme and therefore fail to stop the boats. He should resist the urge to add any more fuel to the fire of resentment, given he has yet to come up with a plan for putting it out. And that article was written by Shona Craven and read by Lynn McNeil. This is from The National on Tuesday, the 1st of April 2025, from the comments section. Quaker Meeting House raid is an admission of a losing argument. This article is by Jonathan Shafi. I have attended countless meetings over the years in Quaker meeting houses, usually on matters relating to the anti-war and peace movement. So when news surfaced of a police raid that took place at one of their premises in London, I had a sense this was surely unprecedented. Indeed, it turns out that no one has been arrested on Quaker properties in living memory. Yet it was deemed necessary for the Metropolitan Police to break through the doors before storming the venue and arresting 6 women activists. It was also required, such was the scale of this heinous threat, that the police officers should be armed with tasers. All this for a publicly advertised meeting organised by Youth Demand to discuss building peaceful opposition and non-violent civil disobedience in opposition to the genocide in Gaza and the UK government's complicity in the horrific atrocities that have taken place there. Paul Parker, a spokesperson for Quakers in Britain, said, "This aggressive violation of our place of worship and the forceful removal of young people holding a protest group meeting clearly shows what happens when a society criminalises protest. Freedom of speech, assembly and fair trials are an essential part of free public debate which underpins democracy." On this, no Democrat can disagree. Worryingly, this is part of a very definite and discernible trend aimed at criminalising protest in general and Palestine solidarity in particular. Recently, sitting MPs John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn were interviewed under police caution for their participation in a demonstration on the issue. Key organisers have been arrested and charged. Unbelievably, an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor, Stephen Kapos, was also called in by the Met for a police interview simply for attending a public assembly calling for an end to the war crimes being committed in Gaza and for a just peace. It tells you a lot about a society when these are the kinds of people and organisations which are targeted by the state, while the flow of arms to Benjamin Netanyahu, wanted by the International Criminal Court, continues. This phenomenon is not, of course, limited to the UK. In the US, we have seen high-profile examples where international students have been, quite literally, disappeared in the classical fashion of a repressive and autocratic state apparatus. This is not alien to movements protesting their opposition to imperialism. In 1970, 4 students were shot dead by the National Guard during a protest against the Vietnam War at Kent State University. During that era, mass arrests of students were also conducted. In 2025, Mahmoud Halil, a Palestinian student, was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement and is being held in a Louisiana detention facility. He dictated the following to his family. "I was taken by agents who refused to provide a warrant and accosted my wife and me as we returned from dinner. Before I knew what was happening, agents handcuffed and forced me into an unmarked car. The Department of Homeland Security would not tell me anything for hours. I did not know the cause of my arrest or if I was facing immediate deportation." This is just one of a growing number of instances of attacks on free speech being directed against students and academics. The only crime committed is a thought crime. Tufts University student Ramesa Ozturk has also been detained, simply for co-authoring an op-ed critical of the US and Israeli policy. Thankfully, there has been a response in the form of demonstrations and open letters, one having been signed by more than 90 Harvard law professors. But there has also been institutional capitulation to this McCarthyite atmosphere. This means that such practices are being allowed to embed themselves in various forums. New York University cancelled a speech by the former president of Doctors Without Borders because she planned to show a slide providing an overview of the death toll in Gaza. I could go on, cycling through case studies to illustrate this draconian assault on free speech and the very clear attempt to intimidate people as a means to dissuade them from speaking out. In a sense, this only serves to underline the fact that the argument has indeed been lost. Whenever a state resorts to this kind of action, it does so from a position of ideological weakness, relying instead on force to muzzle oppositional movements. While not surprising, we should also note that the most famous free speech warriors on the right of politics have been remarkably silent on all of these developments. It turns out that their so-called principle around the right to speak freely, to write critically of government policy and to organise protest was never any such thing. Rather, their denunciation of cancel culture only ever extended to the issues they favoured and not to their opponents. They have raised no argument in the face of the most obvious and most insidious examples of state overreach and authoritarianism because, frankly, they agree with it. Our civil liberties are under attack, and in such circumstances, people of principle across the political spectrum must step up to the plate. Our freedoms were not delivered from on high, but fought for from below. And they can be taken away without vigilance and action in their defence. Because be sure of this, the attacks will not end with those at the sharp end. That is simply where they start. And that article was written by Jonathan Shafi and read by Lynn McNeil.
The National News on Wednesday the 2nd of April. Large wildfire near Glasgow ongoing amid an extreme risk warning. An article written by James Walker. Firefighters are tackling a grass blaze on hills near Glasgow amid an extreme risk of wildfire warning from the fire service. Emergency services were called to the scene in the Kilpatrick Hills near Mulgai at around 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday evening. 2 appliances were at the scene in East Dunbartonshire on Wednesday morning. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service has warned that there is a very high to extreme risk of wildfire across Scotland from Wednesday the 2nd until Monday the 7th of April, as the country enjoys dry and sunny weather. Together with the Scottish Wildfire Forum, it's urging people to avoid lighting fires outdoors across all areas of Scotland during this time. Group Commander Gary Douglas, a fire service tactical advisor, said, "During any period of heightened risk, fires can ignite easily, spread very quickly and burn with high intensity. At this time of year, in early spring, we typically have a large volume of dead, bone-dry vegetation across large areas of the countryside. This essentially acts as a fuel for fire. There are currently vast areas that are tinder dry and vulnerable, which provides all the ingredients for fire to take hold and to spread. Human behaviour is the cause of most wildfires in Scotland, so it's imperative that we all act responsibly while enjoying the outdoors, especially over the coming days of predicted sunshine. By following some simple but key advice, we can significantly reduce the risk of wildfire occurring." It's the 3rd wildfire warning issued by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service so far this year amid the dry weather. An article written by James Walker. The National on Wednesday the 2nd of April. Opinion. I'm a Canadian in Scotland. This is how I feel about Donald Trump. A column written by Tristan Stewart Robertson. So dire were the choices at last year's UK general election, I spoiled my ballot paper for the first time. Thankfully, I don't have to wait another 5 years for a national election. As a dual citizen of my native Canada, I get to vote in the federal election called by newly minted Prime Minister Mark Carney. Since the vote was restored to expats by our Supreme Court, I voted in 2 previous elections. Within 24 hours of the election call, I had an email alerting me to the fact and that I could vote. There were 4 more such emails last week. My constituency is based on my last Canadian address, now more than 20 years old. There are just 26 days to this election, so Elections Canada have acted very quickly. I got my ballot on Monday, even before nominations closed. I'll vote as soon as I can and courier it to the Canadian capital, Ottawa. In more than 20 years in Scotland, I've had varying degrees of pride in being Canadian. I've never let go of the country of my birth. I've always felt that connection more strongly. But Canada isn't perfect. I stopped celebrating the nation's birthday, the 1st of July, a few years ago. I remain ashamed of the ongoing racist treatment of 600 Indigenous nations that live within Canadian borders. Despite that, the Canadian pin went back on my lapel as Donald Trump continues to insult and threaten Canadian independence. The United States press took weeks to start taking it seriously. The United Kingdom still isn't. The UK government is largely trying to pretend like this isn't happening, preferring to court Mr Trump. I don't expect Keir Starmer would say much more than a faint "we disagree" if and when Mr Trump crosses the border. Canada believes that it could happen. Canadian nationalism isn't really a thing. In my lifetime, it first showed more prominence when we refused to join the United States war in Iraq. As the United States slid into its war on terror, Canadians more firmly said, "We're not them." Now we're yelling it. It isn't just a trade war, it's existential. The deployment of winter sport language is a sign that we mean business. The hashtag elbows up is a reference to the famed ice hockey great Gordie Howe and his ability to raise his elbows as he smacked an opponent into the boards. I don't remember Canadians more angry than right now. On a practical level, we're running from US products and holidays. Canadians are smart enough to recognise the language of Trump as not only Putin-esque, but also that of domestic abusers. I cover court happenings weekly, and trust me, it's identical. You can't survive without us, you're not legitimate. We're not naive. This trade war will hurt. It will drive a recession. We'll not voluntarily surrender our sovereignty, so the US will have to annex us like it clearly plans to do with Greenland. Our national broadcaster had an entire podcast episode on what a military invasion would likely involve. After the assassination attempt last summer, Mr Trump believes himself anointed by God. With no opposition from his own party and little from others, he's acting like a king. That's why meeting King Charles appeals. He views it as a meeting of equals. And if you view yourself as a king, or at least a president for life, as Mr Putin, China's Mr Xi and others do, then the independence of other nations is merely an inconvenience. Canada and the world are discovering what we should have realised before. The US is not a reliable partner or even a friend. Trade can be good for the economy, but communities need to be far more self-sufficient, especially as the climate emergency gets worse. Democracies need to be far more resilient, and voters need to be far more engaged than they are. Canada took things for granted and ignored the cracks. When was the last community council or local authority meeting that you attended? What was the last committee paper that you read? What legislation from Holyrood or Westminster did you read? Newspapers like this can summarise for you, but democracies require work. Canada has quickly woken up to that fact. I'm proud to be doing my part by voting from an ocean away. A column written by Tristan Stewart-Robertson, who is the chief reporter at the Helensburgh Advertiser, the Clydebank Post and the Dumbarton and Vale of Leven Reporter. The National Politics on Wednesday the 2nd of April. Patrick Harvie to step down as Scottish Greens co-leader. An article written by Lucy Jackson. Patrick Harvie is set to step down as co-leader of the Scottish Greens after almost 17 years. The MSP, who was first elected as the party's co-convener in 2008, has announced that he will not stand in the leadership contest set to take place this summer. Mr Harvie will continue to serve as an MSP and intends to put himself forward in the 2026 Holyrood election. Mr Harvie was first elected as an MSP in 2003 and has been re-elected to Holyrood in every subsequent election, making him the party's longest-serving MSP. Mr Harvie became the male co-convener of the Scottish Greens in 2008 and then became co-leader in 2019 alongside Lorna Slater when the party altered its constitution to create co-leaders instead of co-conveners. During his time as co-leader, the Greens won their highest ever number of seats in Holyrood, picking up 8 in the 2021 Holyrood election. Mr Harvie and Ms Slater became the first Green politicians in the UK to have roles in government under the Bute House Agreement, with Mr Harvie becoming the Minister for Zero Carbon Buildings, Active Travel and Tenants' Rights. During his time in the role, he introduced emergency rent-freeze legislation in response to the cost of living crisis. The agreement was scrapped by former First Minister Humza Yousaf last year, a move which ultimately led to his resignation. Mr Harvey said it's been an extraordinary privilege to hold leadership roles in the Scottish Greens, first as co-convener and then as part of our first ever co-leader team. It's also been humbling to have had the support of party members to serve in these roles and to work with members around the country to advance Green politics in Scotland. At the start of devolution, few people regarded the Greens as a serious political force, but as we've grown, learned and developed, we've become the most significant, sustained new movement in Scottish politics for generations. Given the growing urgency of the climate emergency, that movement is greatly needed. Green solutions are more necessary than ever, and we've been the only party clearly making the case for the action needed to tackle growing inequality and the climate and nature emergency. Others are happy to set targets, but then actively resist the action needed to meet them. I want to thank everyone who's helped the party to grow and given me the opportunity to play a role. There is far more work ahead of us, especially as we see both UK and Scottish governments drag their feet on climate action and too often continue the policies which have made our society less equal. The election of co-leaders in a pre-election year is an important moment for the party. I won't be part of the leadership team that fronts up that campaign, but I'm optimistic to see the party choose the people who will do so, and to us building on our record results and delivering the largest possible group of Green MSPs in 2026. Commenting, First Minister John Swinney said, "I'm sorry to see Patrick Harvey step down as co-leader of the Scottish Greens. He's been a formidable advocate for his ideals, and I wish him well." An article written by Lucy Jackson. The National News on Wednesday the 2nd of April. Post Office scandal victim sets up a Scottish support group. An article written by Fiona MacDonald. A former sub-postmaster and a victim of the Horizon scandal has set up a new support group for Scottish postmasters. Rap Thompson from Clackmannanshire is set to launch the Scottish Postmasters for Justice and Redress group in Holyrood on Wednesday. Mr Thompson, who had his conviction overturned in January of 2024, now wants to help others in Scotland to get the same outcome. The group aims to support victims of the Horizon scandal and to encourage them to apply for redress, even if they were not convicted. Due to the different legal system in Scotland, Mr Thompson believes that a peer support group is needed. He said, "I'm the first postmaster in Scotland to get my conviction overturned by the courts. I felt I needed to do something to get other postmasters to come forward. Scotland are the sleeping dogs in this case, and many victims are unaware of how they can be exonerated or what redress options are available to them. This is why we've set up this group." He continued, "We want as many of our ex-colleagues to come forward and attend the launch so that they will receive redress, which they're all entitled to, having suffered through the biggest miscarriage of justice in our time." The group estimates that around 140 people in Scotland were prosecuted due to issues with the Horizon IT system. They argue that many affected by the scandal are reluctant to engage with Post Office Limited, meaning that they do not receive the compensation that they deserve. In May last year, MSPs passed a law which exonerated Scots wrongly convicted by the scandal. The law is intended to allow Scottish postmasters to access a UK compensation scheme. Cabinet Secretary for Justice and Home Affairs, Angela Constance, said that this legislation has so far led to 64 convictions being identified as quashed. She said, "I'm pleased that the legislation the Scottish Government brought forward last year has now resulted in 64 people having their convictions identified as quashed, and therefore access to redress from the UK Government as a result. The Scottish Government continues to encourage anyone who considers that they suffered an injustice to come forward. There is no time limit under the legislation, and the Scottish Government will always look into any cases where people give their name as a possible miscarriage of justice case." The group has also received support from former Motherwell and Wishaw MP, Marion Fellows. The Post Office scandal refers to sub-postmasters who were wrongly convicted of offences such as fraud due to the faulty Horizon software. An article written by Fiona MacDonald.
This is from The National on Thursday, 3rd April 2025, from the Culture section. Date revealed for Scottish artist Jack Vetriano exhibition by Laura Pollock. An exhibition for Scottish artist Jack Vetriano has been announced following his death last month. Vetriano left school at 15 to become a mining engineer, but took up painting after a girlfriend gave him a box of watercolours for his 21st birthday. The body of the 73-year-old painter, born Jack Hogan in Methil, Fife, was found in the flat in Nice on Saturday, March 1st. An exhibition of some of the works of the artist are due to be held in Methil the day after his death was announced. However, the show at the Affordable Arts Gallery was put on hold out of respect. It will now open from March 4th until October 28th. The self-taught artist drew inspiration from works at Kirkcaldy Galleries, studying paintings from artists such as Samuel Peploe and William McTaggart so intensely that he feared arousing the suspicions of gallery staff. His breakthrough came in 1998 when he submitted 2 paintings to the Royal Scottish Academy's annual show and sold both on the first day, inspiring him to become a full-time artist. His works garnered international acclaim, leading to exhibitions in cities such as Edinburgh, London, Hong Kong, Johannesburg and New York. His 1992 painting, The Singing Butler, is among his most famed work and shows an elegant couple dancing on a storm-swept beach accompanied by their butler and maid, becoming a best-selling image in Britain. Among those to have acquired Vetriano paintings are Jack Nicholson, Sir Alec Ferguson, Sir Tim Rice and Robbie Coltrane. The first major retrospective of Vetriano's work was held in the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum in Glasgow in 2013. It attracted more than 136,000 visitors during its 5-month run and was said to be the most successful commercial exhibition ever staged in Glasgow at that time. A further retrospective was held at Kirkcaldy Galleries in 2022, focusing on his formative years and early career. That article was by Laura Pollock. This is from The National on Thursday, 3rd April 2025, from the Culture section. Dinosaur tracks found on Skye help experts make exciting new discovery, by Alistair Ferguson. Researchers have discovered that carnivorous and herbivorous dinosaurs mingled amongst each other 167 million years ago after finding rare footprints on the island of Skye. According to newly identified tracks, despite being prehistoric predator and prey, massive meat-eating and plant-eating dinosaurs drank together from a shallow freshwater lagoon on the Isle of Skye. The 131 footprints at Prince Charles's Point on Skye's Trottenish Peninsula makes the site one of Scotland's largest and rarest in the world. The discovery, which was made 5 years ago by a student and staff from the University of Edinburgh, has given scientists invaluable insights into the environmental preferences and behaviours of dinosaurs from the Middle Jurassic period. The site revealed footprints of plant-eating sauropods. The large, flat, circular impressions suggest they were made by a long-necked dinosaur 2 or 3 times the size of an elephant, along with a large number of footprints from a carnivorous Megalosaurus, cousins and ancestors of T-Rex. Experts say the area is so rich with footprints from jeep-sized Megalosaurus, evidence of which from the Middle Jurassic period is scarce. Analysis of the multi-directional tracks and walking gaits suggest that the dinosaurs on Skye milled around the lagoon's margins, similar to how animals congregate around watering holes today, researchers have said. The footprints also indicate that, regardless of dominance, the meat-eating theropods and plant-eating sauropods spent time in lagoons as opposed to exposed, drier mudflats. Tone Blakesley, research lead and Masters in Paleontology and Geobiology graduate from the School of Geosciences, University of Edinburgh, said the footprints have helped indicate that the dinosaurs preferred shallow, submerged, lagoonal environments. He said, the footprints at Prince Charles's Point provide a fascinating insight into the behaviours and environmental distributions of meat-eating theropods and plant-eating, long-necked sauropods during an important time in their evolution. On Skye, these dinosaurs clearly preferred shallowy submerged lagoonal environments over subaerially exposed mudflats. Following the discovery of the first 3 footprints at Prince Charles's Point 5 years ago, subsequent finds have made the site one of the most extensive dinosaur track sites in Scotland, with scientists expecting to find more. The research team took thousands of overlapping photographs of the entire site with a drone and used specialist software to reconstruct digital 3D models of the footprints via a method called photogrammetry. The bay on Trotternish Peninsula was also the hiding place for Bonnie Prince Charlie, who sought shelter on the shoreline on June 21st, 1746, with Flora MacDonald while being pursued by British troops. Steve Brusati, Personal Chair of Paleontology and Evolution from the School of Geosciences, University of Edinburgh, said it is astounding to think that Bonnie Prince Charlie could have been sprinting in the footsteps of dinosaurs. He said, Prince Charles's Point is a place where Scottish history and prehistory blend together. It's astounding to think that when Bonnie Prince Charlie was running for his life, he might have been sprinting in the footsteps of dinosaurs. The research, published in PLOS ONE, was funded by the Leverhulme Trust and National Geographic Society. Click online to find a feature-length documentary summarising the research. That article was by Alistair Ferguson.
That concludes this week's edition of the National Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Review. Tell your friends about our service.